If you do cybersecurity for a living, then you probably have two things to worry about: operational security and compliance. If you're interested in both, and in particular the compliance component, I have an expert here today, so I hope you stick around. I have a feeling you'll learn something. Hi, this is Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber. I want to welcome you to our video today. I have my friend Anil Karmel, who is the co-founder and CEO of a very cool company called RegScale. We're going to learn a little bit about compliance, shifting left, which I think is a good idea, a little bit about some government things, and I'm going to ask him about his background, very interesting background. So welcome to our studio in New York. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
It's great to have you come. Hey, why don't you give us real quickly a summary of the company, and then we can get into some of the tech.
Yeah, definitely. So the company is about a little over a year old. We launched it as a spin out of another company. So the technology is actually very mature. It's about 4 or 5 years old. But it's really around transforming how compliance is done from this manual, paper-based process that hasn't seen innovation since 1995 to something that can be near real-time and continuous, where you can push a button and paper can be generated on demand, and it's always right.
Do you find that compliance, one of the reasons it's kind of not innovated is because maybe the frameworks are a little rigid, or is it because we've thrown the wrong resources out? Like, what was the problem, and why have things improved more recently?
Well, I mean, the problem is, this process to demonstrate compliance, right? To gather all of this evidence in formats stakeholders want to see, is traditionally been done in Word documents and Excel spreadsheets, right? I had to manually create these documents in my former life, right? You've had to live this in your former life, I'm guessing, right? And so and we're still doing that today. I mean, it's decades later, and we're still building all these artifacts today. So really the only way to do this is to have a modern approach to gathering this type of evidence in near real time. And that's what RegScale delivers, is a modern machine and human experience leveraging the power of APIs.
Yeah, the compliance burden over the last few years has been kind of ridiculous. I mean, it's gotten to the point where there's so many frameworks that I think it just sort of explodes budgets. Do you find with your clients that cost reduction is a big issue? Do you save them a lot of time and money by building like a digital system of record and automating? Is that a big driver?
It's a massive driver.
I would think it would be.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, and this is the part of the organization that traditionally, no matter what's going on in the economy, you always have to demonstrate.
Yeah, you have no
compliance.
choice. Yeah.
You don't have a choice, right? So for the first time, you can actually drive down the cost of compliance and yet improve your overall compliance and risk profile at the same time.
Yeah, it is amazing. In cyber, you could almost characterize controls as being either like to do or must do.
Yeah.
And the must do, to your point, is not discretionary. There's a mandatory component there that I think most people recognize. So you're in the right business, that's for sure. That's good. Now you guys talk about a concept called RegOps that I think is kind of cool. Well, how does that work, and how should people think about that?
Yeah, no, great question. So, this notion or this concept was born out of what has been done in software development, right? There used to be a time where developers would write code, they'd go hand it over to a system administrator to go test it, and then the system administrator would say, oh, no, you got to go fix all this stuff. Then they'd finally work it out, and then the code would get deployed into an environment. And then security would come in and say, oh, no, here's all these problems that you have with your application. Yeah. You got to go back and go fix all this stuff. So this discipline of DevOps was born, right, which became DevSecOps, right, to have a cultural transformation for these types of groups to work together, coupled with tooling to make that happen, with now the advent of CI/CD pipelines and security tools, right? How can you shift left security to make security real time and continuous and complete? So, we thought, well, how about taking the principles of DevOps and bring them to compliance in a discipline you can think of as regulatory operations or RegOps, right? So instead of waiting for systems and applications to be deployed to then have all the compliance people come in and say, show me how you're meeting these controls, how about you start and stay compliant with your regulatory obligations, right? And output the documentation that the stakeholders need to see on demand.
It sounds good to me. I mean, for years people would say, what are you kidding me? You can't make compliance go faster? Like almost like agile compliance is an oxymoron, right?
Right.
But I think you can. I think to your point, and even if it can't be perfect, you ought to try, because part of it might be auditors, assessors, things, who knows? You can't always control that. But I think the idea of doing some DevOps-like work in the context of compliance is a legitimate innovation. I think that's a really good approach. Well, what are customers telling you? What kind of feedback are you getting from people doing this?
So the first reaction is what you just stated. It sounds too good to be
true. Yeah,
true.
no way, right?
So that's usually the first reaction. Like, this sounds too good to be true, right? Because I mean, this space has not seen innovation since arguably 1995, right? There's been a lot of bites at the apple of, these different
GRC platforms, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. And, while they helped in a lot of ways, you still have to care and feed these large monolithic tools, right? And you have to spend millions of dollars to realize value that take years to measure, if ever, right? So, by applying these principles of DevOps to compliance in this discipline called regulatory operations, right, you can now actually, in a modern platform, achieve rapid time to value at a fraction of the cost it takes you to develop traditional compliance artifacts and demonstrate that compliance.
A big problem I always had that come from big company environment is scaling.
Yes.
Like the idea that multiple business units have their issues. I would think automation and this idea of RegOps, that probably addresses scaling. Is that an area? Maybe not a big issue for a little teeny company, but a bigger one definitely, right? Do you have customers who talk to you about that problem?
Absolutely. I mean, we primarily serve very large regulated entities that have to demonstrate compliance.
Messy compliance environments.
Exactly. So that's traditionally who we serve, is those messy, very large individual business units that have their own unique compliance requirements. So we built RegScale to be able to serve each of those individual business units in a platform that has that isolation and segregation that those business units need, right? Yet have enterprise reporting leveraging your own BI tools, right? Because we're an API-centric platform.
Yeah, it makes sense. And government sort of focused areas are as intense as any in this area. You guys just did an acquisition in that area. Tell us a little bit about that.
We did. So we acquired a company called GovReady. They were an innovative platform around helping you to create compliance artifacts and leverage compliance as code to do so, coupled with an industry standard called NIST's Open Security Controls Assessment Language, or OSCAL. So we've been, walking parallel paths here, and it made sense for us to join forces and for GovReady to join the RegScale family and become part of our platform to become the market leading NIST OSCAL platform generating compliance as code. And we've done this in a way that allows practitioners to be able to define their compliance artifacts in the platform using a really good human experience and then output it in a machine readable format.
I'm going to ask you more about the Gov thing, but you said something cool. You said compliance as code. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, we have this compliance that we document in Word docs and Excel spreadsheets. You can think about it as compliance.
Manual.
Yeah, manual. Compliance as imagined. It doesn't actually meet what your compliance is as implemented. Right? You think this is what you're doing, but when the auditors show up, it's not what you're actually doing. Right? So compliance as managed is not compliance as implemented. So, by leveraging automation, you can actually say, this is what I'm doing, and prove it. And that's what this compliance as code journey allows you to do, is be able to take these findings that come from your security tools as mapped to compliance controls, instead of a human having to manually do that. Automate the creation of tickets in your ticketing solutions, right, to keep your compliance paperwork up to date and output that as code. So it comes out in this NIST OSCAL format I
Compliance is
mentioned.
code.
It's all code.
That ain't bad.
Yeah.
That's pretty. Let's go back to government.
Yes.
So right around the time you guys make the acquisition, some changes to FedRAMP. Now it's law. Did you guys have intel on that? Somehow it's pretty good timing for the. Timing is everything, right?
Timing
in
is
business.
everything.
But that how's that worked out? Do you see FedRAMP now playing a more significant role in that government ecosystem?
Absolutely. I mean, now that it's finally become law, it's no longer an option for those that are trying to sell their software to government to not get FedRAMP certified. You have to get FedRAMP certified, right? And the process to do so takes a long time and a lot of money, which is what it's really been a challenge for organizations to do that, which is one of the reasons why this acquisition happened and why we help enable those software companies and organizations that want to do business with the government to rapidly achieve and accelerate their FedRAMP certification, right? Because of our output in this NIST OSCAL format, which was a collaboration between NIST and FedRAMP to create. So as the platform that is the market leading tool for this particular type of standard, right, we can help organizations quickly get their FedRAMP authorization to operate at a fraction of the cost of this traditional approach.
That's a good move. That's good. That's going to be a nice market for you guys, I would think. Now, what does the deployment look like? If somebody's watching, they say, that sounds pretty good. What are they buying? What are they installing? What are they putting? How's it all? Give me the 101 on what a solution deployment would look like.
Definitely. So one of the things that we believe is it should be easy to stand up RegScale. So it deploys natively in a container, right? Completely.
These things have traditionally not been easy.
No.
I won't mention some product names, but usually compliance automation and easy are not in the same sentence, usually.
Exactly right.
So how do you guys fix that?
So by deploying in native formats that are modern, like containers, right, in any environment, right? You can run on-premise, you can run in an air-gapped network, you can run on a laptop. Anywhere a container runs, it runs. You could download an ISO appliance. We also have that, right? So you could run it as an ISO appliance in your AWS data center on-premise, or you can consume it as
I would
SaaS.
think that would be popular. Is that like a cloud deployment? Is that a popular choice?
It really is.
I would think that would be. I mean, maybe it's different now than it'll be in 5 years, but one would think eventually that's where you just do it, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, for these larger, complex, heavily regulated organizations,
a little slower.
Right, it's a little slower, but the ease of deployment is what enables us to be able to serve those customers effectively and quickly, because we stand up in a modern architecture. Or you can consume it as SaaS. That is also a choice.
So let me see if I'm going to say right. You correct me if I get this wrong. So all the things that make a cloud deployment useful, makes it more agile, more ubiquitous, more flexible. If you do the shift left and you do the compliance as code in the cloud, or you do it in that manner, then you inherit all those benefits. Is that part of the secret sauce, like just a modern deployment of the platform?
It's more than the modern deployment, right? It's a lot of the infrastructure that organizations have built, right, have scaled rapidly, whether on-premise or in the cloud.
True.
Right? But the way that we're trying to do compliance and trying to connect all those is all manual in Word docs and Excel spreadsheets that are instantly out of date the moment you're creating them, right? So they haven't scaled at the same velocity.
So it's not just the hosting. You do have to have the intelligent automation, the algorithms that do this thing to obviate all the manual work activity.
It's the connectivity between those systems. How do you take the data that you need, right, between all of these systems from a compliance standpoint and bring it all together in near real time in a system of record? So that's really the value that RegScale delivers. Instead of having humans having to go out and get this information, let the machines do what machines do best. Take the findings from the security tools you already have, right? Take those findings, automatically create tickets when you fail to compliance control instead of waiting for an audit to find out that you failed, right? When that control is fixed, the security tool is going to go off and
Right.
say, okay, this is fixed, and you now documented it in a system of record. So when the auditors come in, you push a button and say, here you go, this is how we're meeting all our controls. Here's our evidence library. It's all captured for you, right? And now you're, again, reducing that manual labor, reducing that time, and quickly generating that audit-ready documentation on demand.
Well,
That's
I'm
shifting left
sold.
compliance.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's the right thing to do. For people watching, what should they do? Is the website the right place for them to get info?
Absolutely. We highly encourage you to come to regscale.com, sign up for a demo. We'd love to show you the value that RegScale delivers, right? This was built by practitioners for practitioners, right? Purpose built to solve this compliance problem, because this is something that isn't going to go away unless modern innovative approaches were applied, which is why we built the software. So please reach out to us today.
And you do have a practitioner background, so it's pretty, I think it all connects up. I want to thank you so much for coming to visit. It was nice chatting. Keep us posted. I have a feeling that you guys are pretty busy now. This is a good area to be in, so please keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Helps to keep us all nice and safe and secure. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And for everyone else watching, we'll see you next time.